Okie doke. Hello, Dhada. You didn't leave any questions. If you leave some questions, then the replay review can be a little bit more guided. If you have any questions about specific things that happen in the game, then that's the spot to ask them. So, anyways, we're going to be playing Garen into Cho'Gath, a matchup where you really have to know your windows in which you can kill the Cho'Gath, because that's a whole lot of what we're looking to do, especially where we're running Ignite. So we have Ignite, we have Conditioning and Overgrowth. Instead of Conditioning, you can go Second Wind. That will give you a lot more HP in the lane whenever you're trading. Second Wind being... Second Wind makes it so that whenever you take damage from the enemy champion, you heal for a little bit over 10 seconds. So after taking damage from an enemy champion, you heal for 4% of your missing health, plus 6 over 10 seconds. So a champion like Cho'Gath, where you're constantly just trading with him, you're going to end up getting like basically a health potion's worth of HP out of this, whereas Conditioning, you don't get anything in the laning phase. And in solo queue, you really should just be playing for the laning phase. In other melee matchups, you could run Bone Plating. Champions that want to kill you in one burst, Bone Plating helps a lot against. Conditioning was really good last season because you got the extra 9 armor and 9 MR. But now, since you get that through other means, like super easily, and especially where you get so many more stats in your mythic item early, you don't need Conditioning. So a very easy thing to add that just makes you like literally tankier in the laning phase. Like it's super strong and kind of overpowered in a way. Okey-doke, so we retaliate our Q. And then getting pushed in here is kind of the price we pay for leashing the Morgana. It's totally fine to not leash your junglers in solo queue if you want to play for your own lane, which, as I said at the start, is totally fine. Okey-doke, so this trade goes good for us so long that we dodge that Q. And then after you kill this minion, you should immediately Q towards the Cho'Gath here, because his Q is still on cooldown and so is his E. So if we can Q towards him and then get an auto attack off and then leave and go back to the minions, and that's good for us. But in this case, he would have backed off. But in general, you want to try to look for those windows when a champion like Cho'Gath spins his abilities. Like, they're going to be on cooldown for a reasonable time. And Garen's Q cooldown is basically always going to be beating the enemies. 8 seconds to Cho'Gath's Q. 7. Already, I lied. But if he ends the trade, so now he casts his Q, we cast our Q, so our Q is 1 second sooner. Here, you think you have the lethal, but like I could tell you even without like really watching, like you need another 2 auto attacks to really to kill him here. So if you're not gonna like flash auto ignite, then you're not gonna have the kill there. You can take a big trade like this and then just take it as a win and then back off. So let's say we take this big trade, okay, and then another auto attack, so that's the maximum of the trade, right? If we're gonna try to go for the kill, then we'd have to flash auto attack. But if you just take the trade for what it is there, have more HP than him, and then go back to the wave, it's still harder for Cho'Gath to lane from this position. So so it just kind of goofed from there. And then Cho'Gath ends up living with about 120 HP, so even if we flash auto, still wouldn't be enough. So if I was playing from this lane state, my whole goal would be to crash this wave and then get a recall off, since you messed up the all-in. Because you want this wave to crash or everything's a lot harder for you. Once you push out the wave, we don't have to go exploring in the river here. If our jungler's bot side, the enemy jungler will be here, and we're not going to kill the Shaco if we spent our ignite. So go ahead and recall after you crash that wave, and then everything's going to be good. You avoid a gank from Shaco. Cho'Gath's going to have a hard time pushing the wave back, since you can come back to lane with items before he can push the next wave, since he has to farm this wave and the next one. But what ends up happening is a whole lot of ring around the rosy here. We recall, get boots, dagger, and then a health potion. Against Cho'Gath, you could just go no magic mantle into dagger. You don't have to rush these berserker greaves like super early, even though it is like what Garen likes to get. It's going to be pretty necessary to have some magic resist early in this lane so that you can just continuously trade with them. And then if you have that no magic mantle, Cho'Gath's abilities are going to be dealing a lot less. And then if he's building tank, which he probably will be since he's running grasp, eventually his Balmy Cinder item will be dealing less damage as well. And then we can turn that no magic mantle into a lot of things. We can turn it into Merc Treads, Force of Nature, lots of things. And we don't have to turn it into anything in it for a long time. It's just used as a laning tool, basically. Gives us extra durability, since every time we trade with Cho'Gath, We have to be able to endure his damage because he's going to have the sustain factor after we go for an initial trade. So we go for a trade, back off, and then we both Garen and Cho'Gath go back to CSing, and then Cho'Gath has his sustain passive where he restores health and mana every time he kills a unit. So that extra magic resist would go a long way to give you better trades across time. So you trade once, twice, 3 times, you're going to end up with a lot more HP, and things are going to be more doable if you have that magic resist. So good gank by Morgana. Go ahead and crash the wave. Cho'Gath TP's back, and then from this spot, you don't want to do this sort of movement where you do this back and forth with him. You do want to make sure the wave crashes, but it's not like he's going to hold this big of a wave. And then you need to like be on the next step already after this. We're either going to sit in here, wait for the next wave, and then attack him as the wave comes in, or we're going to recall and come back to lane. So do one or the other, or roam mid. But a champion like Garen, your roam's mid, like good luck, man. Like it's basically never worth your time. Unless Annie's at like 30% HP, sure, you can go through the red side and then flank the Annie as she'd be all in your Diana. But those opportunities are super, super rare. Fundamental is just going to be sitting in this bush or getting a recall off. So all this time, this is 8 times speed. All this time, it's like not going to be enough. And then we're sitting in lane with 1,000 gold. So the reason this next all-in goes so poorly is because we haven't spent our gold. Cho'Gath has. He's TP'd back. So even though you just killed Cho'Gath, he came back and spent his gold. So he has more stats than you right now. Like he has more value. We only spent about 600 of our gold with the boots and dagger on our first recall. Cho'Gath has spent 1,100 with his recall into Balmy Cinder. So he's going to have way more damage, especially when he's on top of us, or we're on top of him with the Balmy Cinder. So as we're pushing for this trade onto him, if you're not going for the all-in, then it's not going to make that much sense. And then we flash in place. Mouse isn't fast enough, it looks like. And then the all-in's pretty close. But yeah, it's not going to be enough. And then the Balmy Cinder, just that little bit more HP that he has, the little bit more damage that he has is just enough. Even though we could have played this better. If we come back to lane with spending the gold on literally any item, then this is going to be so much more in our favor. So you really have to look for those recalls whenever you get a kill and then crash the wave. So. So yeah, when you crash a wave, wait in the bush to attack the enemy. If you're stronger, you can look for something like that. Or if you've got a kill and you crash the wave, then you probably want to look to recall and spend your gold so that you can come back to lane with more items, and then the lane's just going to make more sense from there. So yeah, now the lane's in a super rough spot where it's going to be very hard to deal with Cho'Gath. Going mid here is kind of too much, even though it is like a way to avoid the Cho'Gath. It's totally fine for us to... The way that this goes wrong is that we push this wave too fast. You have to know that if you push this wave too fast, you're not going to be able to crash the wave up here because Cho'Gath has too much stats and is too much to like... we're just not... It's not going to work out because like if we try to trade onto the Cho'Gath and next to the turret, like we're not going to be able to get that wave in. So you need to be like last hitting this wave instead of doing this, like spinning the abilities, spinning extra auto attacks. Because just on those 2 melee minions, it makes it all happen faster. And then as this wave is here, it's going to be a lot harder to deal with. But you don't have to just leave the lane from this spot. Even if you're just staying here for the XP, it's totally worth it. Going mid lane and taking this wave from Diana is not only like taking away golden experience from your mid laner, but you could just be standing top lane and getting this golden XP. And it's not exactly like the scariest thing of all time because Cho'Gath doesn't have his ult at this stage. So yeah, this movement doesn't make any sense at all. You really need to look to just stay in lane, even if you've like immediately pushed out the wave or something. Because if it hasn't crashed, then you're just missing out on golden XP with movements like that. Alright, Cho'Gath's freaking out. Okey-doke, we get a good trade onto him. We're laning, we're laning. You want to avoid spinning your Q on the minion so that you can always threaten the Cho'Gath with it. Okey-doke, and then we crash the wave and same deal. Sit in the bush, recall, do something. In this case, I think sitting in the bush would be fine because even if we recall, if we spend 1100, we can get the Hearthbound Axe, we can get a Ruby Crystal, we can get a pickaxe, we can get a lot of things, but we kind of want to keep Cho'Gath in lane here because if he recalls, he's going to complete his Frostfire Gauntlet and then he's going to be a lot stronger than us. Since you invest in the Berserker Greaves, that makes it so that you're always going to be like at a gold deficit in terms of like completing your mythic item at the same time as the enemy laner, because if they don't invest in tier 2 boots as well, then they're going to get to their mythic item a lot sooner. So all this movement into the river is giving Cho'Gath so much value because he's basically no mana. And if Cho'Gath has no mana, he can't lane, and then you can beat him up even though he has more stats than you. So whenever you go into the river, you give up the minion wave, and then Cho'Gath pushes out and then leaves. And then we like freeze the wave a little bit. Cho'Gath gets the berries, it looks like. No ult Morgana gank. Okey-doke, so then we crash the wave and then we have to recall. Okay, and then whenever you come back to lane here, you have to realize that you're weaker than the Cho'Gath. You have Hearthbound Axe, what is the whip called? Iron Spike Whip, and then Cho'Gath has his Frostfire Gauntlet completed, so whenever they complete the mythic, they're basically any mythic in the game to your component items is going to be stronger. So you're taking a trade into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minions, and Cho'Gath with 1 level advantage and a mythic item over your components. So this is never, ever, 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 ever going to work out for you. So as you see, after the Q lands, we trade. We have about 800 HP, and Cho'Gath has about 1400. Jeez. We have to get through 2000 HP. We need a gank. We need a gank if we're going to kill the Cho'Gath. So then we have to end up flashing away. So step 1, don't trade into a wave that's pushing into you. Step 2, don't trade into an enemy with a level advantage. Step 3, don't trade into an enemy with an item advantage. So basically every step of like trading properly, we failed them all. Okey-doke. And then from here, you have to realize you're on the back foot. You have to be okay with just kind of AFKing right here and letting the wave come into you. This is a whole lot of top lane, especially whenever we're losing. Losing or in a losing matchup. Because sometimes we stay in spots like that, the enemy can't kill us, and then we're outscaling them, for example. Okey-doke, so Cho'Gath comes again. We try to trade if we didn't learn the first time. Okey-doke, and we just keep not learning. Like, if you didn't win the trade beforehand, you're not going to win it like the second time or the third time. Like, Cho'Gath still has the level lead, still has the item advantage, etc. So that's why the second part of the laning phase goes so wrong, because we don't respect Cho'Gath's item advantage. If we have the Null Magic Mantle at that stage, like maybe things go better as well, because the Balmy Cinder would be doing a lot less damage. His abilities, like every single one of Cho'Gath's instances of damage is like magic damage, so a Null Magic Mantle goes a long way, whereas most lanes it kind of doesn't. Say if you get a Cloth Armor or Null Magic. Okie doke, so yeah, we're on the back foot and we're kind of just looking to move around the map and get anything done that we can. Our team fights mid, we push out the side wave. This is okay. If we look at mid lane, can't really do much without our team anyways. Okie doke, so we Gale Force, flash, Annie flashes away. We were already on top of the Annie, so you don't have to go crazy with the flash. Just Stride Breaker and then try to look for an auto QE. And then whenever you Q someone, before you E, like probably just drop the Ignite, because you're probably going to kill them from there. Okey-doke. Almost go down again, but it's a bit complicated since our team was playing the way they were. The way like we come back in the game is pretty good. Move around the map, actually farm the side lane, and pick up a kill here and there. Trading 1-for-1 here is whatever. Better to like farm the waves and then, you know, run into the enemy and get a kill than do nothing basically. Especially where the rest of our team in this game is like on the back foot as well. They've all died a ton of times. That's kind of like how the game ends up being lost. We try again onto the Ashe, but this time the J4 is there, and then we can't actually stick onto him. If we save the Gale Force, or the Stridebreaker for J4 ult, it can actually get you over the J4 ult, oddly enough. Farming the jungle camps is good. We can do it. The Cho'Gath can die. Good news. Kidok, and then we get the Black Cleaver, so we're in business. The rest of our team may be sucking, but given how the laning phase went, like this is the beauty of Garen. We still get to play the game, even though like we kind of just did almost everything wrong, like when the enemy had an advantage. Oh, Tristana, we hate you. Okay, so we played that about as well as we could. Tristana wanted to get them to safety though. Stridebreaker. E. Auto, ult. Nice. Chose the right one too. Doke. Whenever the enemy doesn't know you're here, you can be more patient with your whole combo. So Shaco would go over. He doesn't know that he knows that his red buff is gone. So give him time to like move closer towards the bush and then move into him. So move into him and then auto attack and then Q. If he's fast enough, then he'll Q away. So then we might miss an opportunity. But if you Q towards him, you just miss out on damage. Because we have to Q and then E. And then if you're going to go for the kill here, just drop the Ignite as well. Drop it like as soon as possible. And then our ult was just coming up. Okay, so we end up getting them with the Ignite, but we have to chase him all the way into his jungle. Cho'Gath comes from top lane, and then, yeah, we're screwed from there. Make it a habit of whenever, like, whenever you Q onto someone, Ignite. Not in the early game, obviously. We don't want to level 1 Q Ignite the Cho'Gath, but, like, mid to late game, basically every time we're going to be hitting someone with our silence, then we probably want to be igniting them because we're probably going to be killing them, especially if it's a squishy target. Now, if it's a tank or a bruiser, maybe not. But whenever we're on a target that we're definitely going to take out with like one combo, just drop the ignite at the start of it. There's no reason to save it. And then if we have to use it later, like we're always going to be putting ourselves in a bad position. Okey-doke. So we're showing up to this fight a little late. Our whole team is like way weaker than the enemy team at this stage, so good luck. So we Q onto the Cho'Gath, and then you kind of want to just ignore the Cho'Gath, which is what you end up doing. Get onto the Annie, ult the J4, Stridebreaker back a bit too soon, so we miss out on the Stridebreaker damage onto the Annie. And we're trying to take out the Cho'Gath, but you could still try to just ignore the Cho'Gath. Like you could move past him into the Ashe if you wanted to, and then use your Q to cleanse the Ashe slow, but you keep auto-attacking the Cho'Gath. Killing the Cho'Gath doesn't do much, whereas killing the Ashe does. And the Cho'Gath just doesn't go down. It takes so long. And then by the time we kill him, Ashe finishes us off. So if you can move past the enemy tanks to get onto the enemy backline, you want to be doing that more often than not, because Garen's a champion that can actually kill the backline. And Stridebreaker is so effective at like helping you do that. Okey-doke, so our team totally caught out mid. All this movement in the side is like not so useful. Like moving around here for like vision, just be in the mid lane like with your team. It might seem like brain dead or dumb or something, but like it's better just to be in the ARAM than to be like on the sidelines here, because if anything happens here, it's easier for you to respond or to like make something happen if the enemy show up in a stupid way. Because yeah, late game, more often than not, it's just going to be everyone lining up like robots here, and if you're not there, then your team's basically in a 4v5. So even though like you want to be getting vision or doing something like that here, the strategic game just isn't there yet. You know where we are. We're in silver, so just line up and be there for the fight sooner rather than later. Especially as a tank, it's important for you to be there to frontline for your team. If we were playing Garen on ARAM, we would want to be in front rather than like on the side or behind. So then Tristana gets caught out, and then if we're here, maybe Shaco doesn't go for this because we're there, or maybe we can silence the Shaco, or some, we can get some damage off something. But now we just have to like watch our team die, and that's, it's a bummer. There's not much to do about that. Okey-doke. And then kind of the same deal in right here. Shaco's gonna get onto our team. They're all gonna die, and then we're in the side lane. So spots like that, if your whole team's grouping, you just have to be there with them, even if it's the wrong play, you have to be there with them so that you can be involved in the fight, so that you can have some impact. Especially with like how the state of the game was, it wasn't so crucial for us to be farming the bot wave. So yeah, the main problems I think stem from the early game. In the mid to late game here, our team was just so far behind that there's not much to really say about it. The recovery and how we bounced back from the early game was good enough, And yeah, so in the early game, like really pay attention to how you trade, what you itemize, and how you play out the lane. Getting those recalls off whenever you crash the wave, especially in a melee versus melee matchup, is really crucial. And when you can overstay, especially since you have Ignite over a lot of laners, then stay in this top lane bush. Give the enemy laner a lot of time to move up, and then just flank them and all in them from there, because you'll catch so many players off guard like that. So yeah, good luck. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to message me anytime on Pro Guides. And yeah, good luck on your climb, man. Garen's a good champ to stick with too. Alrighty, peace out.